Let's kick things off. Hey guys and girls, Poker King here, back with another video, and today we've got the first of what hopefully will be many videos with different content creators, different names in the community, collectors, players, investors alike. Today we are joined with Transientfire, aka Paul. So if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, kind of tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sure. I'm Paul, or Transientfire. I grew up an avid Magic the Gathering collector in the 90s. I stopped playing Magic the Gathering around 2012, around when EDH first started taking off to pursue other hobbies. Pandemic hit. I came back into cards because cards seemed like a really good activity during the pandemic. Got into Flesh and Blood and have remained a avid Flesh and Blood collector and a little bit of a player uh, since.
Awesome. So obviously we've been talking for a while now. We've had a lot of in-depth discussions about a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about here. So,
Yeah,
um, we're going to start off with Metazoo, I think, because it's one of the freshest things right now. Obviously, it's quite spicy with Metazoo, obviously announcing that they're closing. We've seen so many things come out since, rumors that Bandai were going to buy them, and all this kind of thing. Obviously, Metazoo was probably the first big major sort of Kickstarter TCG that we saw really started off this kind of massive influx of tons of these Kickstarter GGs coming out. I know I've got involved in a couple of them. Some of them failed, some of them are still going, barely, and some of them are doing quite well in the case of games like Sorcery that seem to be finding their own sort of, I wouldn't say niche, but it's kind of found its own fan base. So,
yeah.
Metazoo, what do you think about the whole Metazoo sort of situation?
Is this a child-friendly channel? Just I want to clarify that real
Oh,
quick.
you can say what you want.
Oh,
We swore when me and
oh,
Josh did the
okay.
video, so
Oh yeah, Mike Waddell's a fucking grifter. That's what's up with Metazoo. So I got in on Metazoo. Full disclaimer: I bought like the first two Rudy kits, a bit of Wilderness, and a bit of Metazoo in a collection buy. So obviously, I've been taken to the cleaners on Metazoo. A little bit of Metazoo I have, but yeah, I kind of knew there were some warning signs around when Mike Waddell fucking said shit like, "Oh, there's gonna be all these industry verticals." I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I come from the consulting space, management consulting. It's like, oh, there's gonna be a skateboard vertical and a T-shirt vertical and a playing card vertical, and I'm like, do you even know product segmentation, you bozo? And I'm just like, this guy's a fucking clown. And that was like the first red flag, but I'm like, well, these morons are still pumping it. So I guess I'll hold on. I guess I'll hold it. I'm not going to really put any more meaningful money into the game. But,
yeah,
there was just some things, the way he acted on things, the way he, you know, the way he kind of presented things that kind of gave a red flag. I mean, like he had a lot of like the investment banking consulting type speak down, and usually when you have a guy like that, either he really knows what he's fucking talking about, or he's an absolute bozo and he knows nothing. And I think it's pretty clear, he knows nothing at this point. And
yeah,
I heard the Bandai rumor that's comical. So I'm sure his ego is getting crushed by that. So good for him.
yeah.
Gets what he deserves.
That was, I think the obviously, as you said, the warning signs were there. I know, when it first sort of the Kickstarter was like coming out and stuff. I heard about it, and at that point, I wasn't like 100% sure what Kickstarter was, and I was like, oh, this doesn't look. It wasn't as. It did come to the UK, but obviously I don't think it was as prominent as it was like in the US. So I remember um, my supplier at the time, which is a good friend of mine, he got some of the Kickstarter stuff, like the first edition stuff and all that, and he was selling like packs. I think he was doing like a box break. So I was like, oh, I'll get a couple of packs. That's usually how I test the waters. I get a couple of packs, see what it's like. He opened it up, and I saw the cards, and I was like, not really my cup of tea, but you know, send them anyway, and I'll have a feel for it. And I remember instantly feeling the cards, and I was like, "No, this isn't for me."
Yeah,
And then after that, I was
yeah,
like, this isn't really my kind of thing. I'll pass on it. Like, and I obviously saw the prices going up mad, and a lot of people that I knew were like, "Oh, you know, this game's really kicking off." And at the start, I was like, oh, "Okay, cool. That's pretty cool. Like, fair enough. Like, it's not for me." You know, I could have got involved, but I didn't. But you know, and then it sort of things started coming out, and it was evolving. You know, things were going absolutely mental, and I just remember seeing. Obviously, this was during like where every TCG was going mental, so it didn't
yeah.
look too abnormal at the time because it was like, well, everything's going up. Um, you know, and I think over the last couple of years, I know you know, you saw the partnership with like it got in big box stores. You know, they almost kind of went the opposite to how you know LSS
Yeah.
wanted to treat Flesh and Blood. And I thought this just seems very quickly, like in a short period of time. Obviously, we had the Arby's thing and then the Hello Kitty thing. That
Hmm.
to be honest, the Hello Kitty thing when they announced it, I was like, that's pretty cool. Like that must have cost them a lot of money because that's a big
Yeah.
IP. Um, but yeah, and then obviously I don't know what Hello Kitty boxes were before the announcement. I know that they had to keep dropping the price down or something.
Yeah, they're under $50 now. I keep looking at them just out of curiosity because I do think the
Yeah,
Sanrio collaboration is pretty cool. I think I'm in the minority in that, but
yeah,
that's okay. But it's kind of interesting, right? So I live right near a Target, and it's within walking distance to me. It's the closest grocery store. So like I'll go and I'll pick up like prescriptions or some food or some other like stuff I need for around the house. Naturally, being a collector, I always go to the TCG section in Target.
yeah.
And a few months back, I want to say around the summertime, they actually had two peg hooks of native booster or blister packs on display. It took them a month, but they actually sold out of all the natives. So I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, the Metazoo native completely sold out. Maybe Metazoo isn't as bad as I thought. But I'm like, still not enough for me to get into it. But I'm like, oh, maybe there's a little bit of positivity there. And then the Hello Kitty debacle happened, and I'm like, yo, this thing is done.
Yeah, this is yeah.
Unfortunately.
It it felt like it was something that was just inevitable. Um, I know, you know, we know other people, and we've spoken to a lot of people that were really in deep. Some people that were, you know, for a while completely blinded and thought, you know,
Yeah.
this game is going to continue.
Yep.
Um, I feel bad for the people. You know, there's some people that have pre-orders still open. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I feel bad for the people that generally enjoy it. I know there's people that, you know, the money aside of it, you know, they play and collect with their kids and stuff like that. And I think when games die, I mean, you can still play and you can still
Mhm.
collect. Obviously, you can't collect new stuff, but the amount of money that some people have lost is quite eye watering, honestly.
Yeah. That
To be
dude who
honest,
lost 100K on Metazoo. Quite staggering.
where'd you go from that? Where'd you go from that?
I don't know, man. That's a feels bad. It's a big feels bad.
Yeah, that's a bad place to be in. But so Kickstarter TCGs, how many have you been involved in yourself?
Yeah, so I'm excluding Metazoo because I didn't get into Metazoo during the Kickstarter. I I saw it. I'm like, oh, it's okay. It doesn't seem like it's getting a lot of popularity. I'll pass. But I was on Nostalgics, which I sold very little of and kept a lot of, which turned out to be a mistake. I was in Grand Archive, which I turned into a cold foil Master Momentum, and I was in Sorcery, which I turned into a cold foil Tunic.
Nice. That I think the possibilities for these Kickstarter TCGs. I think I I got involved in Grand Archive. I didn't do too much of that. I did sell. I opened the box and I opened one of the decks that they
Yep.
came on the Kickstarter. And I remember those videos. I remember uploading them to YouTube, and those videos just did really well. Because people just wanted to see openings of it. But and the cards look really nice for Grand Archive. I don't really have any sealed left, I don't think, but I've got slabs and stuff. I've got like the Blue Rain. I think the cards look nice. you know, I sold pretty much most of the stuff and sort of made money, and then, you know, I've been able to keep some pieces that I thought was pretty cool. Sorcery, I pretty much sold of it quite early on. I think I didn't even bother opening any. I just, as soon as I got it, I sold it. And I did a Cora. I don't know if you've heard of a Cora before.
Yeah, so I did buy one box of Akora when it was being dumped by Channel Fireball for $30 to open and
Yeah,
look at, and I said, oh, this kind of seems nice, but it's dumping, so it's probably never going to recover. But I'm like, I had my fun. I wasted $30 and I opened it and enjoyed it and then moved on.
yeah, yeah. They I remember. I think a Cora was quite a big one for the UK because it was, you know, it was like the first, I guess, British Kickstarter TCG that actually had heard of. I don't know if there are others that people haven't heard of, but I remember going to events and like London Card Show and stuff, and they'd be there. I knew quite a lot of people that were in very deep.
Oh, that's
But
unfortunate.
I remember hearing, and Akora, they're partnered with eBay, and they release
Yep.
like eBay exclusive
Yep.
products, but they still come to like all the card shows in the UK. Like people still like them, and it's still collected. I Every time I see them at a show, I don't understand why. I remember them releasing their like trailer video, and it kind of was like RuneScape reminiscent. And I remember watching that trailer video, and I posted it in one of my groups, and I was like, "Oh, you know, Akora, I've just shared this," and every single person saw that video went, "Nah, I'm selling now." And it was that video alone. If you get the opportunity to watch it, I don't know, it should be still on their Instagram or yeah, whatever their socials are. But I remember them posting that video, and I saw that, and I was like, "Nah, like this is bad." Like it, if they'd said that we're going for that RuneScape effect, that kind of theme for it, it
Mhm.
still would have been bad. Like it felt like they'd just hired someone that had just left school and
Mhm.
gone, "Here's $10. Like, can you just like, I don't know, make a kind of video or something." Um, but those cards are still. I managed to sell pretty much everything. I've got 2 playmats left, but I don't think like the playmats are nice anyway on their own. So I think with playmats it's not a massive issue, but that was the one that I think made me realize that this been having such poor management. I heard so much from the guy that started it, because I knew someone that was sort of quite close to him, and he was just like, "This guy just hasn't got a clue." By the way, so if you've got money involved in this game, I probably would strongly recommend selling because I don't think this guy has a clue what he's doing. Um, so yeah, I think, you know, with sort of Kickstarter TCGs, as you mentioned, there's the opportunity there to sort of sell it in the hype and then put it towards buying something in a card game that you fully believe in, or you at least believe that it's going to last more than a couple of years, and get, you know, a cold foil tunic and a, you
Yeah.
know, alpha mask of momentum, you know, pieces like that. So I think obviously we've got the altered one, which
Mhm.
is everyone's kind of talking about a little bit. We've Last time I checked earlier, it was about 4,500 backers, which
About, yeah.
is
Yeah.
on its way to sort of meeting sorcery at least, which with 28 days left. So what obviously we've all talked about it already. What's your thoughts on Altered so far?
I think they're trying to do something that hasn't been done before, and I think they're trying to change the TCG landscape a bit. I think from a game mechanics perspective, it looks like it's taken elements from other different games in the past. I think that as a company, they seem to be well polished. I mean, you look at their socials and they have like 12, 15 employees already. It's not like a skeleton crew. They've got, I believe, an office in Paris, like
Yeah,
an actual office. So, there's definitely some serious money behind it. They've got a pedigree in board games. I think they created Dixit, if I recall correctly. So, I mean, there's some clear business acumen behind them, as well as like distribution and Asmodee behind them, and they've got like GameGenic on board. So I think that's pretty promising. But how the digital rights management, if you will, situation kind of plays out. Scanning your cards, your account, owning the digital rights, and printing it direct from Cardamundi. How that plays out for people all across the world, and how gamers and card stores respond to that. I've talked to a couple local card stores, and they looked at it and they were like, oh, they look at the art and go, oh, this kind of seems cool, you know, oh, it's kind of how it plays, blah, 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 blah. And they find out about oh, you scan the QR code to your account, and then you can just call up the manufacturer and they'll print you another one. They're like, why the fuck would I carry this in my store? I want to sell more packs, dude. And like, I'm kind of like, you know,
Yeah,
I kind of understand it, right? You know, so, you know, it's just like once they kind of get the cards they need, or they trade the digital rights between themselves on the marketplace, like it effectively cuts the store out. And a lot of and I feel like they're underestimating how much of a store's actual revenue comes from intelligently buying collections at, you know, that
yeah,
50 to 70%, depending on what card game it is and depending on what assets are included in the trade-in, and then their ability to either turn that around locally in store for the highest margin, or move pieces on TCG Player to collect like a 15% gainer, if you will, or a 20% gainer, and then move that and keep that cash flow turning. And they're essentially cut off from that. So basically, their only ability is going to be to sell boxes. So I see that being a headwind for Altered. But I am mildly optimistic on the game. They've got an online client out. It seems like it plays pretty well. I haven't had a chance to sit down and play it yet, but you know, I want
yeah,
to test it out and play it and see if I like it. You know, but I think it's showing a lot of promise.
yeah. It seems very different. It doesn't seem like it's not coming across as something that isn't at least thought out in some way. As you said, they've got a business, they've got a history of board games that back in by Asmodee and Game Genic, which is something that I haven't really seen from any of them. So I think the game for me looks good. I'm quite hesitant now after everything that's happened, but with obviously Kickstarter TCG and just sort of TCGs in general, these last couple of years, it is quite a rocky space to be involved in.
Mm-hmm.
But they're doing something different, as you said. It doesn't look like um, something that will be 100%, copied from another a game. The digital thing is something that is definitely interesting. I need to look into that more, but I know I saw something about the unique rarity. You can have like as literally unique, so no one else
Yeah.
can have a version of that one, which obviously is cool for collectors. Collectors kind of want that. That's why cereals do so well. But as you said, like stores not being able to basically buy and sell collections and stuff like that is going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm interested to see kind of what it does. We've still got 28 days left.
Yep.
Um, I don't know. I think as the amount of backers and the money involved increases, more people will sort of jump on it and go, do you know what? Okay, this it's gonna, at least it's gonna come out, or it looks like it's gonna come out. It doesn't look like a complete pump and dump.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I'm sort of interested. I
Yeah.
want to get the crack the decks, play in person, because I think playing sort of online, and I think people will end up like trying to do download proxy and stuff. But once the decks are in hand, I think I'm quite excited to sort of play with people. I only went in low on it, I think so far, but I got to play Matt and some
Yeah.
decks and some boxes. So yeah, I'm in sort of interested to see. That's not till July anyway, so interested to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
So next we'll move away from sort of Kickstarters, and we'll talk about One Piece and Bandai.
Ooh, One Piece, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
Some interesting news on One Piece. I'd say that One Piece has had the most momentum, especially after Lorcana started losing steam. One Piece has really carried all the momentum. I mean, pretty much everything in One Piece was pumping, 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 till Bandai pumped the brakes and said reprints, reprints, reprints. I think the question is to what extent we don't know, and I think that's the big question. Is Bandai going to be Bandai and then kill another successful card game? Or have they learned from lessons past that, hey, One Piece is like 30 years old, I think? Like it's a relatively established IP for decades long. And like you
yeah,
probably, in their best interest, you probably want to say, okay, well maybe instead of slamming on the brakes, we need to just pump them a little bit, you know? And just moderate some reprints, be selective on it. maybe print a whole bunch, hold some back in your warehouse. Because Bandai Namco is a huge company. I'm sure they've got tons of logistics where they can just kind of trickle stuff out to distribution around the world. Get the
Oh yeah.
places that need the supplies so players can play, but not so that collectors investors are carried out on a stretcher. So we'll see how they handle it. We'll see if they can kind of make the markets happy. If I had boxes of like OP01 or OP05, I definitely would be looking to move my field. I don't know if like the errata, the pre-errata prints and like the very rare stuff is at risk. 'Cause it doesn't seem like players are angry. It just seems like players are happy and on a crusade with their pitchforks to get all the collectors and tell them you
Yeah.
dirty scalper on Facebook and stuff. It's quite comical.
Yeah. It is. It's definitely interesting. I think I remember speaking about this back in September when it started to, they had the reprint of OPO1 and OPO2 and they just sat on shelves. The game was ticking away, it was doing its thing. And then, I think around August, September time, I remember sitting here filming the podcast with Mike and the live action had just dropped and we're like, oh, maybe we'll have a watch of it. My friend, I actually had some Japanese One Piece from when it first came out, and then I picked some up when I was in Japan last January. Um, and I was like, the cards look nice. I collected a bit of Digimon, but then I kind of thought of just forgot about it. I was involved with Flesh and Blood and Pokemon, and my friend since the get go was playing Matt, and he was just like, One Piece was his like it's his favorite thing, and he was kept telling all of us to get into One Piece, watch One Piece, play the game. And then the live action came out and we were talking about how much can this live action affect the game? Like does the people watching the anime then to watch, the casual people watching the live action as well, how does that translate to them going out and buying packs? Um and I must admit at the time we both said I don't see how that's going to affect it. And then a week later, I'd binge watched the live action. Mike had started it, and I was, me and him were already on, Facebook groups and eBay, looking at, cards to buy. And I remember us revisiting it, going, okay, I think we were wrong here. I think, this is definitely a plausible thing to happen. And I remember I started tracking boxes back then because I was like, I want to see what happens because boxes did go up when the release of OPO1 and OPO2 came out. There wasn't enough supply, and they did like completely dry up. And I remember hearing about it, but I was like, oh, it happens with a game. But they obviously reprinted it, and they did a big reprint for OPO1 and OPO2, and it went back down to retail again. And then I remember seeing OPO3 and 4 had come out. No one really cared. Like the players obviously liked some of the cards, but OPO4 is still. I talk to. I'm in Discords with a lot of players, and I obviously I sort of go to events and I play with them, and the same thing always is why are people buying OPO4? They're like, there's nothing good in the set. It's a trash set, and they're saying, I post prices of people paying $160 for one in America, and they're like, what do they know? And I'm just like, well, obviously everything's going up in One Piece. People are just like, well, this is the only thing I can get, so I'm going to buy it. So it definitely feeds into that, and yeah, players 100%, as you said with the pitchforks. There was definitely some hostility towards me when I joined some of the discords, and I think there still is now to this day. I say certain things that definitely piss people off, and it's I sort of now have that opportunity to come from from a player, collector, investor, and then
Yeah.
also obviously a store as well. So I see the game from every aspect, and I don't I don't see the need to sort of be so negative towards collectors. People want to enjoy the game. Obviously, yes, there is going to be people that are going to have large amounts of sealed and stuff like that, but that is obviously it's their money. It's
Yeah.
but as you said, I think if you're holding specifically OPO5, if you're holding a lot of that, that is obviously the most recent set. Cases are over $3,000 now. I would be very worried if I was holding cases of OPO5 right now, because whatever they do reprint, however big the reprints are, they're 100% going to reprint the most recent set. And obviously, Saka is the most playable deck, and that's from the most recent set. So many of those cards are climbing massively. So Bandai, when they do a reprint, they are definitely going to go for the most recent set. Obviously, we don't know to the extent of what reprint means at the moment with One Piece. You know, we don't know if they're going to reprint all the sets. Are they just going to do? I'm siding towards something that I've spoken to a lot of people about, is them doing a OPO1 to OPO5 best of 2023 set, and it's just different arts, which they generally do with their collections anyway, but all the playable stuff from the first 5 sets in different art, which is what they do in their premium collections. They've just got a new product coming out in September. They've announced, and that's got like a couple of the promos they've reprinted that were like non-foil promos that got reprinted as foils now. So I'm interested to see what they do. There's definitely a risk involved for people that have got a lot of sealed. I think if you've got a couple of boxes, and you truly do believe the game is gonna last, as much as there's gonna be a lot of people out there going, well, Bandai have announced reprint OP Dead in like 6 months. It is still one of the biggest IPs in the world. A game, an IP like OP, is gonna, if you look at other games like Metazoo, how long they take to die. I'm sorry to bring that back up again for people, but there's games out there that are literally on their, they've been on their last legs for 2 years. Final Fantasy TCG, no one talks about that, but it's still being printed.
Yeah.
Digimon
Question,
still
right?
gets printed.
Is One Piece, are they going to do One Piece like they did Final Fantasy TCG? And I know it's separate companies, but a lot of people don't remember Final Fantasy was huge. Final Fantasy during the first 3 sets had hype. Those sets pumped, and then Square Enix turned the printing presses on. Money, card machines go burr, and they just printed out cards and cards and cards, and it tanked the game. I mean, that's just the balance, right? Are they going to have to do? They're going to have to balance where collectors don't get completely destroyed, players get enough to be happy, but you can't print to the point where cards go to like nothing, and then even the players get mad because they had to buy $50, $60, $70 playable cards, and now they're playable are down to $10, and their decks are not worth anything, and then they get mad. Kind of the duality of collectors and players. It's like players want their decks to be cheap, free. Should be like an LCG. And then, but when they buy the cards, then they want to go up. And then when they get a real job that pays, then they want to, oh, I'm a collector. He's got to pump my bags. So it's funny. There's 2 sides of the same coin, and it's just like a joke,
Yeah, it's an ongoing thing. It's just a funny one every time. It's laughable to read the comments, for sure, about it. I think every game has the same issues. Collectors, laugh about players. Players laugh about collectors, and it's just a tale as old as time. Really, I think it's funny when you are both. Then it's just like I don't know. You get both sides. No one wants their cards to be worth nothing, right?
Here's the thing, like we're pretty deep into indie TCGs. I know you like Pokemon. I still very, very rarely will dabble into a little bit of Magic. But for the most part, we follow a lot of indie TCGs. And the reality is most of these indie TCGs are small enough where really the players and the collectors should be coming together and working together, enjoying the game. Collectors shouldn't be a complete asshole and be like, hey, you brokey, go get a job so you can buy more cards. Don't complain about game pieces anymore, and then, players should like reprint all the ground, screw the scalpers, screw the collectors, with their pitchforks and their tiki torches out, marching the streets. I think that, for a game to grow, I think there needs to be a lot of positivity, and, people need to kind of understand both that they're the same, the different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, I think that sort of cohesion is really important, especially in the smaller games. I've seen we've both seen the evolution of Fab over these last few years. We had the big pump at the start. Rudy was telling everyone about Fab, and everything was going to the moon. And then we sort of had this big drop off after Monarch, and it was, a lot of people were very conservative, but it was a mostly players game. And I think now this, the faith in the game from collectors is starting to come back a little bit. I think people are starting to go, okay, judge pack aside, I think people are starting to see Heavy Hitters looks like, such a good set. I think that's pleasing quite a lot of people. So it is possible for games to have more cohesion. I think Flesh and Blood has a lot more now than it did in the past. I think players now are happy for their cards. If cards are expensive, they've kind of accepted, cards are going to be expensive. This game's quite expensive, but it also means that I can sell and trade my cards. I play at my Armory events, but days like today where I'm going down and play a bit of Blitz, but I'm making deals as well with players. They'll come down, I arrange a time slot. They'll trade in some cards from a deck they don't run anymore for, play sets of cards for a deck they want to run. Yep. And that kind of, and they understand that, there's sort of cards that, and they'll get like store credit and, things like that. So that kind of thing is important. They understand, some cards cost more. That's absolutely understandable. But with these other games like One Piece, I feel like there's a entitlement, I think, with some people where because their cards were so cheap at the start, they should always be cheap. But all the players I know, they're very happy. They've been very happy to sell into the hype. They've sold so many, they've sold their trophy cards, all their promos. They sell all these alt art leaders. They're very happy to list their cards on sale, make deals. But, there being no sealed is the main thing that I've heard is that they can't buy product. It's not so much that cards are so expensive. It's that they can't buy product, which is quite interesting because that was very different than what I heard from Flesh and Blood, where people were like, why is CNC £70, or why is the tunic over £100? And then, they reprint it. And then he's like, well, why is my tunic not selling for £70? And I'm like, well, I've got screenshots of you complaining that, it costs too much. And now it's dropped, but nobody wants it because everybody's got it. And, and I remember watching a tunic from Crucible of War. Every week, he dropped the tunic. I'd see it, want to sell, tunic, 75, 70, 65. No one bit. And it just kept dropping and dropping and dropping. And I think it hit about 45. Then I messaged him saying, I'll take the tunic. And he was like, why don't you buy it at 70? And I was like, because I knew you were going to keep dropping the price. No one's paying 70 quid for it. And it was sort of, he was like, yeah, I was waiting for you to buy. And I was like, well, I'll have it for 45. And he was like, fine. And they've gone up, they've rebounded since then. I think it was always going to happen. That, obviously the Rainbow 401's dropped a little bit, but it's just, yeah, it's comical in a way, really, because it follows the same thing over. But I think, Flesh and Blood definitely is a lot less like that now. So what are your thoughts on Heavy Hitters?
I think Heavy Hitters is a large step in the right direction for the game. I think this might be the first set in a while where players are going to be really happy. Collectors are going to be mostly happy. They made some very positive changes for players. I know that a lot of people compare it like, 2.0 is boring compared to 1.0. Wow, my power level, And they made decisions from a gameplay perspective to really tone down the power, and I understand why. Because you can't just keep power creeping forever, because that essentially shortens the game's life cycle. But they got rid of a lot of the legacy heroes that were ultra powerful. Basically most of the Monarch and all of the Tails heroes and Starvo are gone. So they got rid of those guys. But they also they made it so it's enjoyable and it's slightly stronger than the last few sets, I think. So I think the players have something to be happy about. And they made some good changes to the collectibles. I mean, the Marvels, better. They're at least on the level of BTD Marvels. They're heroes. You can debate like oh, I don't like Olympia, he's kind of lame, or oh, I don't like Betsy, or oh, whatever. Um, but like you're gonna like one of the heroes. You might like Keo, you might like Kasai, you might like Victor.
Yeah,
So not every hero is gonna be for every person, but I think overall getting heroes is an upgrade from especially from Bright Lights. Good lord, those were a miss, a complete miss. And then
yeah,
the cold foil only Fable. The
yeah,
Fable being only cold foil, I think that's a W. They're not going to be handed out like candy. I mean,
yeah,
like I opened 15 cases of Dusk Till Dawn. I got 4 copies of Heart of Soul. Unfortunately, all 4 were rainbow foil. I opened
yeah,
10 cases of Uprising. Maybe one more, maybe 11. I got 4 Blood of Sakai's. 2 of them were cold foil, 2 of them were rainbow foil. I know, I know before people get into the comments, it's like, I know that's above rate, but like they were too common. There wasn't a chase there. You could say that, oh, you're just using the default heavy hitters art, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I know it wasn't as pretty as Plague Hive. Plague Hive was sick. It's not as pretty as Library or Corsham. I understand that. You're going to compare it back to the previous landmark. But I think it's a step in the right direction, man. Imagine you bring back, like, Mark Poole to do something again, or like I'm going to Hartford tomorrow. So imagine you bring in like Arcade Post for the All Arcane set that's coming. That'd
yeah,
be spicy, He does a only cold foil Fabled. You get some hot, spicy artists in there. I think people are going to be buying that thing up. So I think they're making steps in the right direction. I think the other thing that they're being smart about is, for those who weren't paying attention and didn't see Fluke's interview with James White. James White has warehouses in all the major geographies now. So he can move his product from Carta Monday to the various different locations
yeah,
when the warehouses are controlled by LSS. And because James and LSS is controlling the supply to distribution, not just going boom, distro have everything, and then distro is doing crazy stuff like dumping boxes on stores and stuff. And I think it's going to control the print runs and the supply to stores a lot better, so that at least stores will be able to open boxes, sell cards at a profit, not get completely carried out on a stretcher or in a body bag
on
like they have
stretcher,
been the
yeah,
last couple of sets, and maybe get stores excited to carry the game, get stores excited to host armory events because they know that they're gonna fill up because the game's good, and then B, those players are gonna be like, yo, the set slaps. I want I want the new hype card, whatever their new hype card is. There's tons of great brute cards, a couple of great warrior cards in the set. Boom, I want to get those cards. I'm gonna rip a couple packs every time I go to the LGS. And now they're selling packs
yeah,
at like $3.99, $4.50, $4.99, or whatever the LGS charges. Now they're making money, and then they're happy to carry Fab again. And
yeah,
cards will retain value. Hopefully, they don't overdo it and over trickle for too long. And then, as long as cards maintain value, collectors will be reasonably happy. It'll inspire people, like in a certain Discord, to buy a whole bunch of cases and then store them in their closet or rip them open to sell on TCG Player. I didn't buy a lot of bright lights. Just being honest. I bought like one case to rip for commons and rares.
yeah.
Depending on how the set does, will get me buying multiple cases again. 10, 15 cases. So I think that will be it'll be good for the game. If they the set does well and they build on this momentum. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I haven't been. I mean, I was excited for Dust Till Dawn, but Heavy Hitters feels like an overall excitement. I
Yeah.
think the package that we're getting with this set, um, as you said about, and I sort of want to highlight on the Marvel heroes there because obviously, people. This set I think has the potential for so many playable heroes that people are going to be playing constantly that could, have a good effect in the meta. Whereas, it's not one of those sets where one hero is good and everyone else is trash and no one's going to play him. Someone's going to play all the heroes, and having the Marvel heroes of all of them is such a good idea because I think that these Marvel heroes, when they've settled at their price point, are going to be quite liquid because people, especially at the start, people are going to want to try. Okay, I'll try Victor, or maybe I'll try Kaio, or maybe I'll try Betsy. And there's going to be that. I'm not sure about the sort of young ones. I think I know a lot of people that love Blitz, and I'm starting to get into Blitz myself now. So it'll be interesting. I think those will probably settle a lot less, and that in itself, I think, might make them liquid. But it'll be interesting to see the price point of what those land on, which I think will be kind of will set a precedent going forward of what. And I think LSS are definitely aware of kind of these things. They'll be looking at it and going, right, well, these are settled at this price for the adult. These are the young ones. Obviously, Cold 4 Fabled, perfect. We've got another landmark as well, which is great. I thought they were going to do one. I thought we were going to get 3 gems, then 3 landmarks, then whatever they were going to do after that. So to have, the Great Library of Solana, then Corsham, and then we had Everfest. So we had the Valahar. Yeah, the Grandeur. I wasn't I think the playmat of that looks really nice, but the card itself I wasn't too keen on. But having this, this arena, I think is so good, and Cold 4 only is amazing. It's going to make Fables feel special again, which they definitely lost some of their, some of their special because Rainbow Foil copies were being pulled out. I remember I think I was picking up Blood Drakai's recently, Rainbow Foil for like 30 quid each. And a Fable should not be that cheap.
No.
For a game that's still in print, Fable shouldn't be that cheap. So yeah, I'm excited. I think I said when I started playing the game again that I would probably only play Katsu. Just because I'm very stubborn when I play games. I generally just run with one hero. I like what I like. But I played I did a pre-release and I played with Victor. And yeah, he seems like a bit of an arrogant son of a bitch, and I think I quite like that. He's got that kind of my friend compared it to Jamie Lannister and Homelander. That mix. I think that's definitely spot on. And no one else at the pre-release ran Victor. Everyone else was running all the other ones. So I was like, you know what? I'll try Victor. I got absolutely battered. I'd never done a sealed event before, so definitely a learning curve. Obviously, Liverpool's coming up as well. You've got an event this weekend. Well, tomorrow. I've got an event next weekend. So yeah, it's exciting. I think I'm hoping that I get my cases of heavy hitters soon. I'm excited. I'm generally so excited just to rip packs. I'm going to take a box with me to the call-in, so Thursday night I can do like a sealed event with a couple of friends at a bar or whatever. Just get a bit of practice in. But yeah, I'm excited. This will be the first event, Flesh and Blood event I've ever played in. I didn't play at Worlds because I wasn't really playing then. So, and is it for you as well?
Yeah, no, I was an active player in 2021 at Armories at best, and then to early 2022. The last Armory I was in March of 2022. So it's been a while even since I've been to an Armory. And I've never been to a Calling or a Battle Hardened or a Pro Tour, but I figured this isn't too far away. It's a Calling. It's on a premiere of a set. The promos are pretty
special.
Neat. I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna make the hour and change drive, and I'm just gonna show up. I've never played sealed. I'm gonna get completely dunked, but it's gonna be fun. I've been looking at some of the cards. Seems like the easiest play for me is just to be a smooth brain and pick Enforce KO. So that's probably what I'm gonna do because I can do math and I like big numbers. So KO seems to be the logical choice to me. I just have to remember to do all my tokens and crap, and then I should be okay. Maybe I'll steal a couple wins. I'm just gonna go to Magnolia and Hemel, and I'm basically gonna look over every cold foil legendary that they have, and then hit all the vendor booths and try to do some trades and pick up some cards while I'm there, and I'll go out with the group of guys. That's my plan.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I think these kind of events were kind of made for that. I think I went to going to Worlds was eye-opening for me, and it kind of brought more love to the game that I already had. You know, I didn't at that time. I'd been to like one armory event in the past, like back during Monarch, and I tried Levia Blitz deck, and the blood deck just killed me every time. And I
Yeah,
was like,
probably a bad
maybe
choice
this,
for a beginner.
yeah, maybe this game isn't for me to play. I'll just collect. But going there and you know, Kuba was like, "Oh, you know, you should play," and I was like, I don't actually know how to play. And he was like, "Oh, I thought you were joking." I was like, "No, I can't." Um, so I was like, I was, you know, wheeling and dealing and meeting people and networking, that sort of stuff, making content, and it was so much fun. Just meeting everyone. You know, going to all the vendors and that. As you said, that's one of the most exciting things for me. You know, sitting down with them, trading up, making deals, selling, buying. Um, which is great. I know Mox and the Whole from the UK are going to be there at Hartford as well.
Why aren't
They're
you going to
coming
be
back
there?
It's a bit far for me to travel for a weekend. I'll definitely come up to a US event for sure. Probably not this year, but next year for sure. Because I need to come over and meet everyone.
You gotta wait until there's like a Worlds in New York City. Like, imagine if James
Oh
White
yeah,
does like Worlds at the Jacob Javits Center in New York City. You know, people who are, you know, from the UK, you can get direct from London Heathrow to JFK.
yeah.
You take a cab from JFK right to the Javits Center, and then boom, you're in the heart of Manhattan. You're playing Flesh and Blood. You're seeing the world. There you
Oh yeah.
go.
That for me would be, you know, I mean, I kind of I hope that Worlds. I think Worlds will probably be somewhere in Asia this year,
Yeah, I think it
but
will. Yeah.
I hope it's not Japan because I can't like I want it to be Japan because I'll gaslight myself into going, but I'm already going to Singapore and Malaysia late this year, so I can't. I don't know if I can justify Japan as well unless it ties it around. You know, it is November I'm going, so it might do. But that would be special. But New York would be awesome. I'd definitely love to come visit New York and do the trip.
Yeah, no, I'd like to. I'd like there to be a Worlds at Tokyo someday. That would be
That
sweet.
would be mad.
I'm a little bit of an aviation geek, and I know Japan Airlines just unveiled a new A350-1000 that has direct flights from JFK to Haneda in Tokyo, and they're beautiful
Yeah.
airplanes. So I would love to fly on one of those and check out Tokyo, experience like first or business class, and live it up, like a whale, and have a good time in Tokyo, and then play some Flesh and Blood, and interact with the scene. One of my buddies, who's a single seller, is going over to Tokyo for work because his
Right.
client is is a Japanese company. And I'm like, dude, man, you got to check out the fab scene in Tokyo. I mean, there's a lot of hype over there about the fab scene.
Yeah.
Like, you got to go and check it out. Go to an army, and you got to tell me if it's for real or not, or the people are just like, I know fab is like a bubble of positivity mostly. So
Yeah.
let's see if it's real. Our player is growing in Asia. I think that's going to be really neat for him.
Yeah. I remember hearing stories of like all the alpha tunics being bought up by Japanese buyers when they announced like, the road to the Japanese roadmap, and obviously we've got Japanese language cards coming out this year. There's rumors that the set's going to be tied in with it,
Yeah.
which which would be quite cool. I've had so many people ask me, "Oh, are you going to get Japanese fab?" And because I predominantly
Yeah.
my collecting life was Japanese Pokemon cards, and I've been to Japan 3 times now, and it's a big fan myself. I think they were like, "Oh, you're going to get Japanese fab," and I was like, "Well, I don't know really. I mean, I don't know what I don't know what the market will be like for those. It's not like Pokemon where Pokemon is a massive amount of collectors versus the player base. You're not
So
going to be able to
yeah.
use Japanese cards.
Question. So if they do something special for the Japanese print, kind of similar to how they did for the European HP1,
Yeah,
they do special like Marvel Heroes. But let's say something crazy. If they do like dark anime styled anime heroes, Are you in or are you not?
Oh, I think I would probably be in. Yeah, 100%. I think if they did like the WTR heroes, but like anime inspired, I guess. I don't know how that'd piss a lot of people off, I
Oh, it
think.
would. Maybe not. Maybe not the ones that were in HP1. Maybe like some of the 2.0 heroes in Marvel or something.
Okay, yeah. I
Like,
mean, Dromai would look amazing.
or like Uzuri would look pretty sick too.
Yeah.
Riptide
Oh
would look
yeah. I
sick.
mean,
Dude,
they could
anime,
do
think the
that.
dark style, like think not like like the waifu animes. I'm thinking like
Yeah.
JJK or like Parasite, like an
Oh
anime
yeah.
like that. But like dark, think like Riptide, man. Oh, savage.
That would be cool. I think I'm excited to see what they do. Because I know that they're gonna do some type of sigil that will be like maybe like a cherry blossom
Yeah.
garden or something, or like a like a Japanese temple or shrine. There's gonna be 100% that they're gonna use the like the shrine that's on like Miyajima Island, the famous one that people take the photos of. That would be yeah, I mean, I'm excited now. I sort of forgot about it, but now we're talking about it again. I'm just getting hyped. Yeah, I'm excited to see. I'll definitely get a copy of the Japanese Ira decks, just so because I've got one of each printing already. Anyway, it's just I know they're not like a massive item, but they're just something quite cool. I think. And a lot of people's introduction to the game was I remember being chucked one. Actually, was chucked at my face when I walked into an LGS and I went, "Oh, did you do Flesh and Blood?" And he puts his hand in a drawer and he just absolute yeets a Ira deck at my head. And I'm just like, "Cheers!" And he's like, "Grab that and have a look." And I was like, and it didn't do anything. It didn't help. I just got hit by a deck. But I know that's the first product that they're getting is the Japanese Ira decks. So it'll be interesting to see where the game takes off in terms of Japanese language cards. Because we know the print runs for the history pack foreign language were quite small for the history pack one. So it'd be interesting to see how they're going to judge the print run. I think initially that the Japanese cards will probably sell out because there's going to be they underestimate the people that will buy it from
Yeah.
other countries just because it's Japanese. People just want to see the kanji.
Yeah, man. I mean, when I played Magic the Gathering, I bought some Japanese cards. Like, well, the local game store is charging $1 less for Japanese. I think
Mm,
Japanese is cool. So it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll pick up that Japanese pernicious deed. Awesome. I have a Japanese pernicious deed in my deck, my commander deck now, or well, EDH back then. And everyone's like, anyone who plays like knows what that card does. You have to read the card.
yeah,
You see the art, boom, you know what it
exactly.
does. Yo, but like
Yeah, I think
imagine, the Ira deck. Imagine if they did like an alt art anime for Ira in the Ira deck.
that would be like an alt art Edge of Autumn as well.
Yeah,
That would
make it
be
non-foil so you can include in the deck. But man, people would be buying those from the U.S. Man.
yeah. I think that's the thing. I mean, the Mythical Archive cards from Strixhaven, the Japanese ones, are
Oh,
some of
love
my
them,
favorite
love
cards
them.
in in any card game. I'm not, I'm very much not pro Magic the Gathering. But I mean, I did buy a Lord of the Rings pack today at my LGS because it was there.
Dude, I
But
opened like 6 boxes of Strixhaven Japanese, man, collectors.
yeah, I
It's
opened
sick.
quite a lot. There's such. I mean, the Japanese set boxes now in the UK are like 50 quid each now. Because nobody really wants them. So I buy one every now and then. I crack it open because it's just fun. But that definitely could happen like long term with Flesh and Blood,
Yeah,
where the language just doesn't matter because people are so familiarized with the cards that it just doesn't matter. So I don't think the you know people aren't going to care about random commons or something in French, for instance, but Japanese language for sure. And this is the start. I mean, if you look at what Pokemon do, they print in
hmm
Korean, Japanese, simplified Chinese. Um, they've got Thai now. They've got like loads of languages, and they're quite collectible. They're a lot cheaper. The Chinese stuff is really collectible because they the products that they released are completely different. They're not the same as the sets that come out in the West or in Japan. They have their own sort of product lines. So, I mean, the possibilities are endless. What do you think? So, how do you think that they're going to do that? Do you think they're going to do like a history pack? How are they going to bring what's already out with Flesh and Blood to Japanese?
I think they're gonna have to do a history pack one. Like I don't,
Yeah,
I know that I've heard through the grapevine that a lot of Japanese stores have been reaching out to prominent US people to buy a bunch of like WTR Unlimited, Arc Unlimited, Crew Unlimited cards to stock their card
yeah,
store for singles, and they've just been buying. The product is relatively accessible, and the 2.0 product is relatively accessible in Southeast Asia, so they don't have to worry about that. But they've been going after some of those older sets, and to this day, I still think WTR is the best onboarding set still for Flesh and Blood. So I feel like they kind of have to do History Pack 1, but like, what do they do, to make to do something for the Japanese community to get them to buy it, Is Japanese language just going to be enough? You don't have any special, marbles like the EU versions had, where you
yeah,
have like a Spanish, Marvel Dorinthia or an Italian Kano or whatever, to help sell those boxes, because like the American cards are probably, or the English cards are probably going to be cheaper. Like what are they gonna do to move those boxes? Is that enough for the Japanese market? I don't know.
yeah. That's a hard one. I think it's. I think they'll have. I think they will do something. Um, and I say this as a sort of a pre-warning to the people, that are watching this, that that are going to get angry because LSS are going to give the Japanese, because I know people were, even though the product's kind of settled now and the the Marvel heroes are extremely collectible, but I remember when they first announced that, so many people going, well, why are they getting this, or
Hmm.
we didn't get that? And it's like, well, you've got to give them something.
Yeah.
Because these stores want to support the game, these players, these collectors, they want to support the game. And they, for various reasons, they couldn't get the stuff that you had the ability to do. A lot people in the US were able to buy Alpha and First Edition Crew and Arcane Rising, whereas other people in other countries couldn't have that opportunity. So yeah, I hope they do something. I don't know how they're gonna do it, honestly. Because they're gonna have to do like history pack. Are they gonna do Japanese language Marvel heroes, or are they gonna do maybe like the rainbow foil Japanese heroes in the set? Maybe or cold foil again. Like what I don't know. Are they gonna do Japanese foil tunic? I mean, if they do, I'm gonna be buying a lot of copies.
I think
But
people would be kind of mad if they made a Japanese foil tunic. I'm not gonna lie.
oh yeah,
But
people will
people
be
would be
angry,
mad.
100%. They're going to be even angrier if they do a cold foil Japanese
Oh my
tunic.
god, if
But
they do a cold foil Japanese tunic, I think people would lose their minds. But I don't think, I think the cold foil policy prevents that from happening. I think the Marvels are
yeah,
also protected by the cold foil reprint policy. But the question is, what do they do to put the value in the packs? So we'll see. I'll have to see.
yeah, that I'm interested to see what they'll do with that. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll have to circle back to that when they actually eventually
Right?
do it. In months to 6 months to, because what is it, May? It's May time, isn't it?
Hmm.
Because we've got it's not confirmed or anything, but it's supposedly going to be
Next step, right?
is it yeah, so it'll be, was it Mysteria they might do?
Probably.
Yeah, I mean Japanese Mysteria. I mean, I'm all for it as a Katsu simp. I think
Buy your ninja
Benji.
cards now, kids.
Yeah, buy your ninja stuff now, because Benji's probably going to get an adult. What haven't they? What other heroes? Because they're obviously introduced maybe a Shadow Ninja.
I can see that.
That could be cool. That would be interesting. I mean, a Shadow Ninja Japanese. They'll add. Don't know what they'll add. Maybe they'll add a waifu in there.
Yeah, they probably will add a waifu in there. I mean, the Japanese fans are there for the plot, so
Yeah, Oh yeah, if you get that game selling in Japan, once the Japanese card game world is even more competitive than the card game world over here. So if they take to that and they're like, "Do you know what, this is good." I mean, I remember being, uh, I remember being in a store and people were like going crazy for these cards, and I don't know if you've seen before, but they have like they come in the cards, but they come with crackers in them,
Mm-hmm.
and they do like these big boxes and stuff, and you get like a pack with like a couple of cards, and then you get crackers in them. But people rip them. Obviously, they're quite cheap. And then I remember people going crazy, and I remember asking this lady like, "What's going on here?" And they're like, "Oh, the cards." And I was like, "Okay, I'll buy a box." I'm intrigued now. I'm somewhat of a collector myself, and and there were it was a video game series that's ended up having a Weiss Schwartz set now, but the premise is that they're famous Japanese racehorses that died that was reborn into schoolgirls' bodies.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I remember opening these I remember opening them with my nan, and
Oh,
I was like, "What is this? Like, what is these cards?" And I was googling it, and I was like, "Oh, it was like it was an iOS game or whatever." And I was like, "What is this?" And I sent it to my mates and stuff like that. And the names, that's what I saw the names, and I was like, so I googled them, and it was all like Japanese racehorses, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And then I, found the information about it. I remember just like, and I've got them in a drawer somewhere. But they had like different styles on. Some of them like ultra rare, and I just remember looking at them saying, "What the fuck?" But they'll make a card game out of anything. You go into a card store. At the time, I couldn't find any Pokemon in there because Japanese Pokemon has been mental. But I remember going in, and I think it was like 68 different booster packs in a shop, and it was a bookstore. And I just remember looking at the big wall, and you have like the little tags, and you got to take them off and go to the counter, and they get the packs for you. Um, I remember 68 different sets of various card games. But if you can crack the Japanese market, then you'll be laughing. I mean, I speak to vendors that used to vendor Magic the Gathering, and they do Flesh and Blood now. But they used to vendor during the 90s Magic the Gathering single sellers. Like they'd go over to Japan, and I remember seeing some photos of stuff, and it was absolutely mental. Like they're an event in Tokyo or something in like 1997, and it's just you know and I think we can definitely recreate that. I've heard a lot of people say that Flesh and Blood feels like early Magic when it, before it became, what it is today. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for that. So obviously, we've both watched the Saint Josh and James episode,
yes.
and there was a lot of interesting stuff. Obviously, said there. I think the last month we've had so much like good content out as Flesh and Blood's fans.
Yeah. Oh my
Honestly,
gosh.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. So what I guess we'll start off with that episode. It was what an hour and 15 minutes long, and then there was the Stonks did the reaction video to
Shout
it.
outs
So
to Tom. Well,
we said we'd do a reaction to his reaction. Now I have to admit, I'm sorry, Stonkswell, I haven't actually watched your whole reaction.
no, we're 33 minutes, man. His reaction.
But we're gonna react to his reaction of the video. So what did you think basically about the video?
Oh, I thought the video was great. So you have two great guys who have slightly differing opinions on kind of how to go about the collectability and investability aspect of the game. But they're both friends, both very important in the Flab universe, but also very, very passionate about the game and love the game and
Yeah,
care about the game and ultimately want the growth. I'm a little bit I'm very pleased about some of the directions that LSS is going. I mean, 22 minutes in, we all know what a certain Discord is going to talk about. Judge packs, baby.
yeah,
I'm glad to hear that LSS received the message. A lot of people oh, and I understand Saint's point of view, where it's like, if you own a rainbow foil Art of War, you don't give a shit about the cold foil. That's true. because the cold foil isn't really going to impact the rainbow foil art of war's value too much, at least right now. But it's just the whole point of the history about the art of foil, the originality of the rainbow foil, and the cold foil kind of infringing on that. And it's the fact that you have all these new emerging markets that are getting into the game who are seeing this as the first time, and they don't have that respect, if you will, for some of the older product yet. And naturally speaking, they're going to gravitate towards that. And I think respecting the original printing, and for the players out there who are who might be listening to this, it's not about like, oh, Transient's got a near complete freaking play set of RF foils, just he's just trying to pump his own bags. It's about respecting some of the original printings of the game, respecting the history, kind of where the game came from, where it came up from, and keeping the people who back the game and continue to be evangelists for the game, even if they aren't coming at it always from the right angle, just happy, because like at the end of the day, I understand both sides where the cold foil doesn't impact the price right now. There's going to be a lot of them. The Judge Pack season 2, was it? A lot of those cards were fucking murked because they were in one card in a paper pack. They literally put them in a fucking cardboard box. They shook them around, and they would go, "Okay,
destroyed,
Judge, choose carefully." And they would, and the judges would like pick in there, and it would be like they're picking like a fucking lottery ticket or a lotto ball, and then grab the pack out, from what I've been told from a judge. And it's just like these cards aren't in particularly great condition. I mean, I'm sure some of them are like gradable and in nice condition, but like really what the collectors want is they want the rainbow foil, the first edition rainbow foil.
Yeah.
And it's about just respecting the history of the game. And collectability is more than just about scarcity and all that stuff. It's about the history of the game, respecting the history of the game. At least that's where I come from. And to me, that's important. But I also understand that ultimately, to make something collectible, to hit the masses, you do have to compensate judges. Judges are an extremely, extremely important part of the game because you need to support the competitive circuit, you need to support the players. I don't like gold foils because I actually don't like gold very much. I'm more of a silver, white gold, platinum kind of guy. I just don't like the aesthetic of gold, so it's not for me. But I understand giving the gold foils to the players, even though having that higher tier of rarity is, a little bit, it's like, darn, my cold foil tunic is not the top variant of tunic anymore. But like, I get it.
Yeah.
It's just about, not, respecting collectability, but also, making sure you do the right thing for the growth of the game. And it's a hard balance to achieve for LSS. So I commend them for recognizing the issue, working with collectors to keep them happy. And I think that's overall a positive change.
Yeah, I think the feedback, obviously, there was surveys done. I know James did a survey that a lot of people filled in. Obviously, LSS got the message. I think, I think it's one of those things. I opened, I was there recording openings of Judge Packs at Worlds, and I remember seeing 3 smashing good times hit in a row. The corners were fucked. It was, it was not a smashing good time. It really wasn't. It was a fucking awful time. And then off camera, my mate gets the Art of War, and trades it for I think Death Dealer, gold foil.
Yeah.
But it's I completely agree. I think respecting where the game has started and come from, the people that got involved early on. I think I've spoken about this recently with Josh on his channel. There's definitely a fine line there. I think that the initial issues with and the criticism with the Judge Packs was, absolutely fair. I agree with it as well. I think maybe the dragging out of it got a bit tedious, hence the 0 days, 0 minutes, 0 seconds.
I know it said 21 straight days, but I think we've seen way more than 21 straight days in a certain Discord.
Yeah, yes, 100%. But I think, you know, it comes from a place that cares.
Yeah.
As you said,
Yeah.
watching that video is great because I also want to commend, like, shout out to Red Man Gaming Josh, because, you know, he's given a platform for these conversations to be had so we can watch them and hear them. Because a lot of these conversations are done privately, we know that.
Mhm.
But I think I enjoy watching Saint because sometimes he probably says things that he shouldn't do. I know when I had him on the channel, this was during the PCG bit where Rudy was buying into the US bit, but it had been announced at the time, and I remember him saying it, and he was like, "Wait, before you post it, I need to speak to Matt to make sure that this can come out." But I think that's somebody who is just so excited and passionate about the game. Obviously, he's somebody that a lot of collectors look up to. He's obviously basically one of our closest links to LSS, really, because he is so involved, you know, with things that happen. It comes from a place of, you know, he's got such a good collection. His content is great to get to see that. Obviously, you know, James is someone that I love, that he just says it how it is. It's straight up. You know, he's not afraid to share his opinion. And having Josh from that side of making content and also playing the game as well, because Josh can be very on the other side of that. There's been some criticism in the past between, you know, certain people in the Discords, but having all three of those together, I think that was, I have to say, and I did say it was one of my favorite videos like that I've seen in a very, very long time. I think having three people together is so much better. Two people is great, but three people really kind of, because there's almost a having to pick a side sort of thing, and, you know, there's going to be things that you disagree with and things you agree with, and I think that's what makes for, you know, better conversation.
Absolutely.
And we learned so much from that, and I think it's heading in the right direction. It's great to hear James say how people are sort of gaining a lot more confidence. You know, maybe that 20%, I think he said, more confident than before. People are starting to buy into heavy hitters.
Yeah.
Obviously, we know that the print run for Everfest Unlimited has been fucking destroyed, which was news that people were, you know, hoping for ages. The guys at my LGS didn't even know that. I brought it up at the last Armory event, and they were like, "Oh, when are we going to get Everest Unlimited?" And I was like, "We're not. It's done." James admitted they destroyed it, and they were like, "Oh, okay." But obviously, there's more that's been destroyed that we don't know the details for.
Right.
Which,
right.
I mean, I would have preferred it if they'd shipped it to my front door. But, you know, destroying is obviously the other thing. So yeah, it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see if we ever get print numbers for all the Fab 2.0 sets. I don't care if we do or don't. I'm somebody that likes to look at numbers, so I'm nosy. So, you know, if they come out, I'm curious. But if they don't, it changes nothing. Do you think that they'll still show print numbers for stuff, or do you reckon they'll just?
So I do, and I'm going to make a weird link between this and Judge Packs just for one time. And trust me, I have a point to where I'm going with this. I think that because of the collector survey that James Curry did, you know, the large overwhelming theme is put the value back in packs. So, you know, I think, you know, the underlying point about Art of War is respect the history, put the value in packs. I think if the upcoming set, instead of doing the Judge Pack Art of War, if they had an All-Star Art of War with like a Japanese theme extended art, Fable, like, you know, dude, people would lose their shit over that. People would have lost their shit over that. That would have sold so many boxes.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a lot of anger in the collectors community because they can't pull it from boxes. And instead of putting that equity in boxes for people to go and buy boxes and support LGSs, you know, you're just giving it to judges. So that's where that anger comes from. But what I think LSS heard is, like, we need to restore the value in boxes. So I think they destroyed a lot of that product, EverQuest Unlimited, completely to the shredders. I wish they had a bonfire chat with Rudy and actually burned it, you know, to make fun of WotC there a little bit. But, you know, I'll take the shredders, you know, Ninja Turtle, Psycho Shredder. I'll take that. I think they probably destroyed. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I think they destroyed a lot of Monu. I think they destroyed a lot of
Yeah.
Tails U. Obviously, Everfest U is completely gone. I think they destroyed a lot of Uprising. I remember Saint had a bet with, was it Edwin the Magic Engineer, about print runs, and
Yeah.
I think Saint thought that number was very, very high. I bet Saint
Oh,
was right, and they probably printed that amount. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they probably destroyed a good chunk of that. I'm also
wow.
go out on a limb and say they probably destroyed a good amount of Dynasty and a good amount of
Yeah.
Outsiders. And then I think probably after that, they probably started adjusting their print runs down. So I think they wanna take a multifaceted approach. Keep the print runs tame, make sure that they're putting smart things in boxes to make people want to open boxes, and overall that bolsters the box value, and that makes LSS want to carry it, or LGS want to carry it. That makes LGS want to run events and promote the game. Because ultimately, what really matters is, I can only speak for the US, and sorry to the LGS owners out there, this is probably a spicy take, but most LGS owners are lazy. They want a product like
Yeah.
Pokemon or a product that Magic, and I just talked to Riddler Man about this the other day. They want a product that sells themselves, and I don't think he's wrong. They want
Yeah.
they want a product where they can just feel like, I'm gonna write Commander Night on the wall, and people are gonna show up. Like
Oh yeah.
I remember going to armories in Flesh and Blood for like, I was briefly went to a couple in Charlotte, at the largest game store in Charlotte, the Mighty Meeple. Place is sick, huge. But like they would have like 20 tables there. There'd be one table of Flesh and Blood and like 19 tables of people playing Commander.
Yeah.
The game sells itself. They don't have to do a lot of work, and they just rake in the money. So I think they need to help the LGS out there a little bit. So put the value back in boxes, and I think they're on the right path. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
link into the print run. So yes, I do think they're going to announce the print runs. I'm not sure if you saw that interview with Sloop, Stackswell, and Saint. Um,
I haven't. No.
so Saint said, we're going to take a poll in this little podcast right now, who thinks they should release print runs. And Saint says, I think they should. Sloop said he thinks he should. Stackswell thinks that they should release print runs. I think LSS should release print runs. What do you think?
Okay. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I'd like to see the print runs. I think you're probably right on the money with them destroying a lot of those sets. I think they definitely, as Saint mentioned in the video before, that they were basically lied to about Monarch. The world was lied to about Monarch, and this is why, this is what lost a lot of my trust with LGS stores and with distributors, because I remember seeing in the UK stores lying to me when I tried to get product. Thankfully not my LGS, my local one that I go to and play at, but the other LGSs that are closed now. So fuck around, find out.
Right?
Um, I remember trying to pre-order and they went, oh, I'm sorry, we're out of pre-orders. And I was like, oh, um, you put on your Facebook page, like 20 minutes ago that your pre-orders were on. And I was sort of in the neighborhood, so I popped in to do it. I was like, you've sold out of pre-orders in 20 minutes. And he was like, yeah, like, we've done our allocation. I was like, oh. I was like, but as far as I'm aware, allocations aren't out. And they were like, yeah, we got ours from distro. And I was like, did you though? And I knew they hadn't. I was like, okay, whatever. And then I remember coming back a couple of weeks before the set came out, and I said, oh, is there any chance anyone's cancelled their orders or whatever? Because at this point, I think boxes were like 150 to £200 here in the UK, on pre-order. I don't think they were like as crazy as they were in the US, but they were quite expensive. But definitely above like retail. And I'd never seen, as somebody who was, had always collected Pokemon, I collected a lot of indie TCGs. I'd never seen a set cost more than retail for pre-order. I had never seen that myself before. I don't think it's at the time. I mean, this was Monarch was what? That was 2020. So this was Fab hadn't, I don't think, kind of gone completely mental. I think it was that was like the trajectory it was going with. It was before like the Monto sort of 1K stuff. And then the set came out, and I walked into the store because I was like, I fucking bet that he's gonna have Monarch on the shelf, like behind him. And I walked into the store, and lo and behold, he had Monarch. And I think this point box was like 300 quid. And I said, "Oh, you've got some Monarch there." And he was like, "Yeah, we got some boxes left." And I was like, "Oh, okay. How much are you asking for that one?" And he was like, "Oh, 299.99." And I was like, "Oh, bloody hell, that's expensive. Like the set's only just come out." And he was like, "Yeah, the demand is high, to stop people scalping them and stuff like that." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "But I tried pre-ordering one, and you said that your allocation was done." He was like, "Oh, people cancelled last minute and that." I was like, "Oh, okay. All right, interesting." And about 6 months later after that, they end up closing down. And they did a big post on their Facebook, like, "Oh, thank our loyal fans," and all that shit. And I remember just thinking, like, fuck you. Like,
Yep.
they still had, when they were closing down, they still had the same box of Monarch on their shelf at the same price. So definitely LGS owners can be very lazy. I'm going to shout out Fistful of Dice, my local card store, because they won't stock a TCG unless they actually do events for it. They're sort of quite conservative. They moved from their store down the road, and they've got a bigger store. They've got a massive basement. The basement fits about 30 people, and they've got like 3 rooms upstairs, behind the shop front and stuff like that. So they do multiple every night. There's constant things like the Discords. The Discord and Facebook group is like 1.1k members. Like it's like it is. They're very good. And they're just actual people that are willing to push games. I've started One Piece events. It really didn't take very much convincing. I just said, look, the game is popular. He was like, look, we're not going to stock stuff until we see a player base that comes in regularly, because we've been burnt in the past with games. And I was like, no, that's fair enough. And he was like, it does happen. So, One Piece, we can't actually get anything in until September, because that's how far in advance it's sold out. But we will be doing, pre-release, but we can do events and stuff. So that was a great turnout. But, they're very supportive. Stores like that do well because they're smart, whereas other stores are lazy, and that's why they close. And I have no sympathy when they're posting up on their Facebook pages that, we've been open X amount of years, but they'll only sell Pokemon and Magic, and they just can't be asked to sell anything else. So it's unfortunately for LGSs, and for any business really, these times are extremely difficult. The bills are so much more expensive than they were before, and you have to be smart. And a lot of them don't have websites. They don't buy and sell online. They might have a Facebook page at push, and I just think what worked for you in the 90s doesn't work now. You need to adapt, and the ones that aren't willing to do that, unfortunately, will end up closing doors. So sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there. I started with one up bit, and I was just like, "Fuck these stores." But it's I'm lucky that near me, there's a lot of good LGS stores, and I think I'm always willing to support the local stores. And I'm thankful I've got 3 in my city now, and all 3 of them are good. They're good stores. So I try to sort of I try to support them as best I can. Obviously, 3 different stores, as well as obviously selling similar like product myself. But the interesting thing is only one of them does singles. 2 of the other stores don't sell singles. So
that's the opportunity for you, right? You've got a what's your store called? The Wraith Tavern on Cardmarket.
Yeah, RatheTavernCards.
Sponsored by the Wraith Tavern on Cardmarket. So that's an opportunity for you, right, to build those relationships. And then I know a lot of single sellers, they'll do a deal where they'll be, in the US there'll be X percentage below TCG player, maybe 15%, and they'll sell it direct to stores for that amount. They build that relationship. That way the stores get a little bit of cut. They can sell it to their player base. And you build that relationship. I'm sure you can probably do the same thing across the UK. You've got a lot of connections with Flesh and Blood now. You start getting sealed product. You come over to events in America. You get some super cheap boxes shipped to your buddy's house. You go, you rip them all at the event, and you bring the singles back to the UK, stuff them in your suitcase, and you're good to go, man.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've spoken about this before with Josh. The UK market is so different, but obviously I've started to talk to Tyler from Righteous Gaming quite a lot recently.
Good guy.
And
good guy, by the way.
Yeah, he's a solid guy. I met him at Worlds. Met him twice actually. He didn't know who I was the first night, but we all had a bit to drink. So, but yeah, I think it's building those relationships in sort of Flesh and Blood where it's still very niche. I could post a poll up on my Instagram page now. What game's going to die next? And I 100% guarantee everyone's voting for Flesh and Blood. And they obviously don't understand it. I was talking to a very large Whatnot streamer here in the UK, and he's got to the point now where he has 5 people streaming for him.
Wow.
And he's got he goes to all the shows, all the card shows, and that he's doing really well. He's cracking pallets of Japanese One Piece, English One Piece. He did it from Romance Dawn, but he does Pokemon as well. And I talked to him at every event, and I remember he used to do Flesh and Blood for a bit, but then they brought in the rules of only being able to be a brick and mortar store to sell sealed. And then that's when he was like, well, at this point, I don't have a brick and mortar store. So he stopped. And then, that was the story for a lot of people that I speak to at these card shows, because I was always trying to find Flesh and Blood at card shows, and I couldn't find, any. And it's because a lot of people that go to card shows, they don't have shop fronts. And obviously, with Fab, you have to have a brick and mortar. So I can't get product myself directly. And I've spoken about this in the past quite a lot, quite passionately, about the decision, which I understood at the time made sense, but for these last couple of years that Fab's been in, where product's been extremely hard to shift, because obviously, a lot of the collectors left the game, or, just reserved themselves a little bit. I would have liked the opportunity to be able to have bought, en masse cases from Distro to get singles out there, because a lot of stores don't crack singles. And I mean, don't start doing it now. But for a while, and that was the thing. And so there was such a short supply, and there was a couple of stores that one of them is going to be at Hartford, actually, Mox in the Hole, which will be, they're amazing. There's a couple of others that are really good, but there are certain ones that monopolize. So they took advantage of that by having extremely high prices, and they'd buy out all the other stores from their singles and then triple the prices. So people had no option but to basically buy from them. And obviously, business is business. But a lot of the players didn't like that. So they just simply couldn't get the cards they wanted. Whereas obviously what I'm trying to do is offer a bit more of a happy medium where there is plentiful supply at reasonable prices. So there's been the gap for that. But if stores, I think, if online sellers or, people like me could have got, if I could have bought 50 cases of every set from Distro, I would have ripped them and sold singles and at least helped, because a lot of people probably left because they just couldn't get the cards. It wasn't even about the price sometimes. It was just they just couldn't get them. So it'd be interesting to see when the game keeps growing, with these next couple of sets that are going to come out. I think 2024 is going to be an absolutely amazing year for the game in multi aspects. I think the steps that LSS are doing are all in the right direction. Still improvement to be made, but we're such a young place with this game right now. It's 4 years. Like LSS, which people have to forget, people forget, they're learning on the job. This is such a passionate thing for so many people. So when you're that, emotionally involved and, financially involved, it definitely hits a little bit more raw. And I know that, LSS are going in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I think I feel pretty confident that LSS is kind of turning the corner. I know some people have talked about, this is the golden era of Fab. I think Sloop, that's his thing. I don't agree with golden era of Fab. I would probably say maybe the silver era of Fab. I don't think anything will ever be better than like WAC. those first three. Yes, I think that's the golden era of Fab. There's nothing that can change my mind about that, especially considering when I got into the game, that was late Monarch, early Tales. And everyone told me, hey, you want to play like the first three sets, don't focus on the new stuff yet. It's a lot more complex, chain running amok, taking names out there. So I focused a lot on like the first three sets, and after I kind of played a little bit more and experienced Starvo beatdowns, I would definitely say that WAC is kind of like that golden era of Fab. But I think Fab is kind of going into that silver era where you're going to have some. I think we might have some really great sets coming out, and if Fab focuses on not totally power creeping it up and turning up the volume to 10, if you will, but just incrementally increasing the power. Kind of like they're doing it right now. Like you look at the valuations of some of those equipment piece cards. Like you look at you look at the Brute Gloves. The Brute Gloves has a value of 5 attached to it. You look at the Balance of Justice of Helm. It's got the same similar inherent value to Crown of Providence, except it's situationally better or situationally worse. You have
The Betsy one.
yeah.
Is mad.
There's a lot of valuable equipment pieces in this new set, and I think that that's going to restore a lot of collectability, because as you start to create better equipment pieces that slightly power creep old ones, or at least are another viable option based off of the metagame, that's going to restore a lot of value to boxes. Because like a lot of people discount the fact that, well, why did WAC, especially first edition, hold a lot of value? Well, if you look at a lot of the value of the cards in WAC, and I know that because they're older sets, the value of like a open market value of like an alpha box is like $2,300, $2,400, and the EV of the alpha box is not $2,300 or $2,400. You're gonna open it and maybe get $1,000 of cards. Let's be real, but the point where I'm getting at is like a lot of those early sets had a lot of equipment pieces that held a lot of value. You look at Uprising. Uprising had a lot of strong EV for the longest time because everyone was playing Dromai. The dragons were expensive, especially the marbles. Crown of Providence is Crown of Providence. Multiple heroes played Flamescale Furnace. Coronet Peak, okay, one hero. Tuco, one hero, and like Ghostly Touch is kind of a meme. Whatchamacallit, the wizard chest, kind of a meme piece until the arcane set. So as we start to get these equipment pieces that are strong again, they're making equipment great again. If they keep doing that, I think there will be value in boxes. They start putting some really spicy stuff. Like if they even after the cold foil Art of War, they put that that all art EA Fables Art of War in the Mysteria set as a Fables. Probably gonna help sell a lot of boxes. People are gonna want that card, man.
Oh yeah.
There's gonna be I think LSS is really gonna put the value back in boxes. So I'm feeling optimistic about that going forward.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get to the point where we're gonna end this video, but I wanna end it on a hot take.
Yeah,
from
go
you.
for it.
I like to ask these things. So, what is your hot take? It doesn't have to be Fab related. It can be any TCG related. But what's a hot take for you?
What's a hot take for me?
There's no line here, by the way.
What?
So the one that's good. There's no lines here. So if you just want to, stir a bit of shit right now, get people talking, then 100% go for it.
Man, I don't know if I have any really, really hot takes. I would probably say that my hot take is going to be that LSS will release the print runs, and the print runs will reflect product destruction, and the product destruction could cause a lot of rebound in box prices that people were not expecting to be caught off guard
Yeah.
on. I think that could be a thing. You know, a lot of people, for example, hated Outsiders, especially considering the collation issues. I got extremely
Yeah.
lucky on Outsiders, so I think fondly of Outsiders, especially because I like Ranger as well. But you know, that's an example of a set that I think was liked by players, under opened because people know that you either hit it big and hit the lottery, or you got completely cucked on. So I think, you know,
Yeah.
once they release like print runs for that and they subtract out those things that they destroyed, I think
They
the print
destroyed.
runs
Yeah.
could be a little bit less than people think they are. And depending on what LSS has in its warehouses still and how much Distro has left, people could be kind of surprised, you know. You could start
Yeah.
seeing, you know,
I can
people
see that.
FOMO into things like Codex of Frailty. You know, you could see stuff like Dust Till Dawn. Dust Till Dawn's already out of print. You can see people being
Yeah.
like, oh shit, Dust Till Dawn's print runs low. You get the guy who did the spreadsheet. I believe it was the Lion who did the spreadsheet for like
Yeah.
the pull rate. All of a sudden you plug in Dust Till Dawn and they find out there's not a ton of CF Scowling Flesh Bags, or you know they come out with the Arcane set, and then they have the Black Lady who's the Illuminist from like Flicker Trick, and she starts wearing
Yeah.
the Diadem of Dream State, and you know you figure out there's not a ton of those, and people FOMO into that. You could see some interesting interactions there. So I think that's probably my hottest take.
Yeah.
I don't think I have anything else particularly hot, but yeah, I would probably say that's my hot take.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. There's some good points there, but thank you as always for coming on
Yeah,
and talking card games. You know, for probably close to 2 hours now. But yeah, so this is going to be a new series for people that are still watching now. I commend you if you're still watching.
right
This will be a
on.
new series that I'll be trying to get in people involved that are very knowledgeable about card games, not just Flesh and Blood, but people that have a lot of knowledge and value to add to these kind of things. So thank you all for watching. As always, please comment, like, subscribe, and see you later.
Later, guys.